In a world where human trafficking persists as a grave injustice, there shines a beacon of hope, a force for change. Eden is on a mission to amplify the voices that matter most, the voices of those leading the charge against trafficking. Join us as we dive deep into the lives and struggles of inspiring leaders from anti-trafficking organizations around the world. You'll hear their stories, their battles, and their unwavering determination to bring light into the darkest corners. This is Eden. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Restoring Eden. Today, I have the pleasure of having two people with me. We have my co-host Juan Garcia, who you might know from, or not might, but you do know when we did our first episode of the Founders and about who we are and what we do. But our guest today, we're super excited, is Alan Smyth. He's the executive director of an organization called Saving Innocence, and he's also a co-author of a book that we're really excited about called Men Fight for Me. It's right here. Let's see if you can see that. Yeah, Alan, before we get started, I have a question. I'm curious about your last name, Smith. What's the origins of the Y?
I've been correcting the spelling of my name almost every day of my life. Anytime takes roll in school or anything else. Yeah, it's spelled S-M-Y-T-H for those of you tuning in. Yeah. And I think it's an English spelling. I think some descendants are from that part of the world, and that's how they spelled it there. And so,
Interesting.
Yeah, so I'm one of the rare Smiths with a Y, and I pass that curse on to my children, and now they got to correct everybody. And here's what it is.
Yeah. I love that because there's usually like a story. I know like Smith goes back so far, so it'd probably be hard to find. But like my last name is Farr, but it's one R, and most of the time it's two R's. But I'm half Iranian. My dad's side of the family comes from Iran, and my dad came to the United States because of the revolution. Right before the revolution in the 70s, he was like 13 years old. And our original last name was, get ready for this, Jahan Baksh Farr. And it was, yeah, and it was hyphenated. And so we just went with Farr, but it was only one R because it was so much easier. Because when I was in kindergarten, I hated writing my last name 10 times, trying to learn how to write.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that's good. Good call.
Yeah. So awesome. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Saving Innocence and how you got started? I know you talk a lot about it in the book, but give the audience like some info about how you got started and what got you into it.
I'm sure everybody in the audience will read or listen to the book, but until they do that, I'll give you the shorter version. Saving Innocence is a 14-year-old anti-human trafficking agency founded in 2010. And we're based in Los Angeles. Our boots on the ground are in Los Angeles, partnerships with law enforcement and all kinds of others. We can talk about that. A team of advocate case managers on call around the clock. Most of those 14 years has been focusing on and intentionally limiting ourselves in a way to child victims of sex trafficking. And that's been the bulk of our work. I say most of our time. The last 3 years, we stepped into leadership with the Sheriff's Department, the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, et cetera, FBI to co-lead the LA County Regional Human Trafficking Task Force. And so by that definition, by leading that, we now embrace all forms of human trafficking, which is minors and adults, and labor trafficking and sex trafficking, rather than, so our scope enlarged quite a bit over the last 3 years. And that's given us, interestingly, sadly, but interestingly, has added to a lot of international victims, because those national agencies, Homeland Security and FBI and such, are involved in global cases of trafficking coming into our country. And so now we are in those conversations and part of that. Right. So that's been challenging and interesting and stretching and all those kinds of things. But that's Saving Innocence in a nutshell. And, I was going another direction most of my life. Was on the Young Life staff for 25 years. If any of your listeners are familiar with that, a faith-based organization reaching out to kids, all kids everywhere. And after 25 years, it was time for a change of scenery and change of, kind of focus and direction. And I had a great run, loved it. And I was drawn my car drove itself to the front door of Saving Innocence and had those conversations with them.
Wow. Yeah. So go ahead, Juan.
No, I was going to say, you said your car was drawn to Saving Innocence. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the year before I left Young Life staff, one of our Young Life staff ladies who was focused, centered out of Burbank, not Burbank, Hollywood, and she said, we should do Young Life inside of Saving Innocence. I said, what does that mean? What's Saving Innocence? And she said, well, they work with child victims of sex trafficking. And I said, well, I don't get it. What are they in Thailand? I mean, how are we going to do that? And much like almost everybody, it's changing some, but most people think child sex trafficking. Oh, that's Thailand, that's Cambodia, that's some other place. They don't understand it's a massive problem here in the United States. So that just sort of was simmering. It was like a seed planted in my mind and my heart and my soul. I wasn't ready to leave Young Life at that time. Then a year later, when it came time to leave, I wasn't sure what was next, and I cold called Saving Innocence and the founder, and made my way to the front door of the office and had the 2-hour meeting on a 1-hour parking meter out front. Yep, got a parking ticket on my first exposure to Saving Innocence. That was awesome.
Nice.
But I said, I want to hear the story. It wasn't a job interview. They weren't posting a job. I wasn't looking for a job. I was just really drawn there. I'm a dad with a daughter. I have a son as well, and little boys are trafficked. But the biggest part of that pie chart is little girls. And so as a dad with a daughter, all dads with daughters out there, it hits differently, I think, not better or worse, 100%. Maybe just differently.
Yeah.
And so I heard that story. I heard what was going on. And at that point, Saving Innocence had just been around a few years. And I said, I'd love to keep talking and be involved. And I started talking to their board members and more conversations. And after a couple of months of talking, they offered me to come work for Saving Innocence. And it was surreal because I accepted a job position in a field I didn't know existed 6 weeks before. I didn't know it even existed. It wasn't like a dream to go work in anti-trafficking work in Los Angeles. So for those of your listeners that are faith driven, God planted the seed the year before, and then looking back in hindsight, all of my relationships, my experiences that I had in Young Life and out of Young Life, it was all coming to focus, laser focus on this, in that time, small organization out there fighting a massive fight. And they needed a boost of energy and resources and people and all those kinds of things. And I felt like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do with this next season of my life. And so here I am 9 years later.
Yeah, and if you can give our listeners like an idea of the scope of the problem that you're dealing with.
Yeah, we can zoom way out. The NASDAQ Global Financial Crime Report said in 2024, $347 billion changed hands on the backs of human trafficking, the buying and selling of vulnerable people around the world. $347 billion. And in that report, it lists that's more money than the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, gambling, global this, global that, all combined. More money is being made on human trafficking globally around the world. The International Justice Mission, known as IJM, they said not long ago that they believe there's 45 million victims of human trafficking worldwide, globally. 45 million. That's not a small number.
No.
You start zooming it down in our country. Number one, it's hard to get stats on this because so much of this crime exists in the shadows. It's off the grid. You know exactly how many bank robberies there were last year. Somewhere there's a report on something, and there's a building, there's money that's stolen. Like exactly how many 7-Elevens got stolen, robbed last year. Right. This is different. But most people agree there's at least 300,000 minors being trafficked in our country on a daily basis, regular basis, and you could just keep zeroing down. It's basically it is in all 50 states. I won't go so far as to say every zip code, because there's probably some really rural zip codes that don't even have anybody in, kind of a thing.
Right.
But all the major cities and all the rural areas and all 50 states, the buying and selling of vulnerable people is happening. It's absolutely tragic.
Yeah. What was your experience like going? Because you said that you went like 6 weeks. You went into something that you had no even idea existed.
Yeah.
So I would imagine going into that, I mean, no, kind of having an idea of what you know, child human trafficking is, but then experiencing it. What was that like? Especially as a father with a daughter, you know, like how did that affect you? I would imagine,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it had to be rough. Like, I mean, I'm sure it never gets easy, but
Yeah.
especially like in the beginning, it had to be rough.
Well, in that first meeting with the founder, her name is Kim, and she was telling me all these things and what their team had been involved in. And, you know, I'm asking all the same questions that anyone was asking. Wait, how does this even happen? Like, what's going on? You know, what do you mean the 12-year-old gets handcuffed and taken to jail when they bust in in a motel room? Like, what's happening here? You know, there's just like this massive, I don't get it. How can we call a 9-year-old a prostitute? That makes no sense. This is enraging. And so it's just a myriad of emotions and feelings were racing through my head and my mind. And I started looking at some websites and watching some videos and learning about this on the fly. And it just became, I might not even want to. I mean, I did, but it's not even that. This was not a career move. I didn't step into something because it was going to be lucrative. I mean, there's none of those things were happening.
Right.
And it was like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Was determining the calling of God in my life, to bring people and energy and focus and strategy to this organization. And every once in a while, you know, I'm getting to the place where friends of mine are starting to retire. Come on, you should retire. And I say, well, the problem is I actually like my job.
Yeah.
Feel like there's more to do.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know that I'll ever retire. Now, let me qualify that.
Yeah.
My role at some point will change.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, the daily grind will at some point change, but I will never walk away completely. I'll always be an ambassador. I'll always do what I can to raise some money. I'll always speak on behalf of the organization. And the problem, quote, air quotes, the problem is I've now gotten to know a number of these amazing survivors.
Right.
Yeah.
And
wow.
And I can't turn my back on them. The rest of society has turned their back on them. Their family members, in a lot of ways, that's what sent them down this path, have turned their back on them. They're not gonna add me to that list. I'm gonna stay in this fight.
I love that.
And Alan, what I really do appreciate, like, as you're speaking, is that, because I've had a similar experience. I mean, you've seen something so clearly now that your passion is driven towards it, right? Mm-hmm. And when I hear survivors speak, it to me, it's such a triumph, because these women, and in some cases men, but mostly women, needed someone to reach for them. They needed that, and you've been that person.
Yeah, that's good.
And I mean, I hear your passion, and I'm with you. I don't know when I'll retire. Yeah. The life has changed. Yeah.
Well, a former mentor of mine, when I was a much younger person, growing me up in my young faith at the time, he was older, and he said he can't find the concept of retirement anywhere in the scriptures, so he's just going to keep working. It's like, okay, all right,
there you go.
Let it be said.
I think it was because one of my favorite characters in the Bible is Caleb. And when he turned 80, he said, I feel like I'm stronger now than I was when I was 40.
Yeah.
when he got into the promised land, right? So it's like, it seems like God's like, let's keep it going.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to ask really quick, so just so the viewers can get a kind of a taste, what is like as an executive director of this organization, what's like day to day Alan do?
There's two big buckets. There's the internal and the external. So the internal executive director, me role is supervising some of the other leadership staff. It's, today we had a goodbye lunch with one of our staff members that's moving on, and it's being there. It's looking at minding the finances and making sure, reviewing budgets and those kinds of things, all the internal stuff that makes an organization run. I spend time and energy on that. I do have some amazing team members that do a lot of heavy lifting in that regard, but I'm responsible ultimately for all of those things, all things internal. And then there's the external. There's the outward facing. I'm the voice and sorry to say the face, sorry everyone, you know, the better looking face here, but there's the voice and the face in some ways, outwardly speaking, coming on things like this.
Yeah.
I was earlier this week, I was on a panel. The company Pepsi is doing a human trafficking training series for their employees, and I was invited to be a speaker on that. And
wow, that's awesome.
Before that, the Miami-Dade County something or other, they did a thing, and they invited me to come and speak at that as well. So I do outward speaking, representing the organization in those kinds of places a lot, and it's kind of the internal and the external, and then there's a lot of little subdivisions underneath that, but recruiting staff and interviewing, and we're trying to hire somebody, so I'm part of an interviewing process and all the things. Ultimately, we have to raise money to make this happen, and so that's the external process too, is fundraising and all that. That's in essence what it is. It's all of those things in any given day, all mixed up. It's not compartmentalized in terms of on Tuesdays I do this, on Thursdays I do that. It's all mixed up all together. Now,
are you ever like how would I say this, like boots on the ground kind of in the mix in that way too, or
well, so almost all of our clients are young girls, and so I'm not going, for obvious reasons, to be in much of a close relationship with them. Although there was one time where there was a young boy was one of our clients, and he was 13, I think at the time, or 14. And one of our female case managers came to me and she said, "Hey, he's starting to ask kind of boy questions." And I read between the lines, like, I don't really know how to answer him. Can you come and meet with him and me? And then he became kind of my little guy, a caseload of one. And he was my guy, and then he moved along in the system, so it's not happening anymore. So the boots on the ground is me, maybe being part of a sting operation, riding right along with the law enforcement as that's happening, but I'm not working individually with our clients.
Right.
Yeah, and then I want to move a little bit towards your book because one, put the book back up, Brandon.
Yeah. Here we go.
I mean, I strongly recommend that you guys purchase this book. And the audiobook is fantastic. I mean, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I read a lot of books. And the audiobook, the production value was so engaging, Alan. I mean, the team that you got to put that together, I was very, very surprised. I tend to be cynical about a lot of things. That's unfortunately my bent. Man, but when this book opened up and then the other voices started popping in and the production value, I can't recommend it enough. I mean, I've listened to some chapters more than once, so it's really, really good. There's the triad of the whole economy of sex trafficking, right? There's the trafficker, there's the trafficked, and then there's the customer. If you could kind of shed light a little bit of that from your experience, of that triad.
Yeah. Those are the three big, and as you know, in the book, there's a whole chapter dedicated to each one of those: the buyer, the seller, and the victim. And just to back up a little bit, just to get it in the recording here, we created a little website called fightforme.net.
Perfect.
And the book is on Amazon. You go straight to Amazon, but just take one more step and go to that website. There's a lot of other resources and other links to other survivors who have their books. Buy all their books. A lot of them have audiobooks. In fact, a couple of the survivors that have audiobooks is what inspired me to do this audiobook with all these voices, because it was so powerful to hear their actual voice.
Yeah.
But go to fightforme.net, and any proceeds are benefiting survivors. It's not a financial gig for me. So buy a case of these books and give them to everybody.
Yes. And buy the audiobook too, to go along with it. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then just to follow up one, so the audiobook, it was so powerful for me to listen to some of these other books written by these other survivors, and to hear I knew them personally, so maybe it was more powerful to me, but to hear their voice telling their story and what's going on. And that's what gave us the idea, let's turn this into an audiobook and let's see if we can get all of them into the studio, plus a bunch of the guys that are contributing, other professionals. Took us about a year and a half or so. Had a friend for the studio and another guy who engineered it. And so, we're really proud of it. And it's really powerful because it's just this chorus of voices telling this story and this narrative. And actually,
you know what? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, in particular, my co-author Jessica was she tells her personal story and speaks throughout the book. And she was trafficked from age 11 to 21, 10 years of this horrendous. And to hear her and her voice talking about what happened to her, it's incredibly powerful. So I'll come back to the big three if you want. But Brandon, you wanted to do something?
Yeah, actually, before we get into that, I know we're kind of jumping all over the place, but I wanted to, if you don't mind, Alan, I wanted to show the trailer that you guys created for it.
Great. Yeah.
So why don't we check that out right now?
Sure.
I look at the tattoo on my neck as a battle scar. The pimp who kidnapped me branded me like I was his slave, and it was done against my will. I began to prepare for my death.
He grabbed me by my hair and dragged me down the street with my knees scraping the ground.
This world and these kids need you.
I typically had over 10 sexual encounters every single day. This was my life, and I was now living it one moment at a time. And I would do whatever I had to do in order to live.
I thought that people valued me most based on sex. I thought sex was the most valuable thing I had to offer this world.
It was despicable and degrading, but I felt like I had no way out. I needed someone to fight for me.
I discovered that I was not alone in my pain. I experienced incredible breakthroughs.
I see myself making strides and growing stronger every day. It is a constant battle and daily decision to heal.
Those old vulnerabilities of being alone and unimportant resurfaced.
Understanding God's love and being able to believe and receive that love is critical.
Justice demands that traffickers not commodify and dehumanize inherently valuable people.
I trust that my story will help motivate you into action.
How can I possibly turn my back on thousands of young girls and boys in need of strong men to fight for them? The answer is, I can't.
Children and young women like me need you to fight for them.
It starts right here, right now, with you and with me. It's go time.
There is so much more to my life, and my story is not done being written.
Fires me up still after all this time.
So good.
Yeah, that is so powerful. One of the things that sticks out to me in that is, I mean, I heard a lot of this in the book, but there's a part there where you can see one of the girls getting emotional. She's telling the story, obviously, and she's getting emotional. And I mean, I don't know if she's told. I would imagine she's probably told the story multiple times, but you can see the way that it still affects and how heavy it is for her to even to go back and talk about this.
Yeah, that was Jessica. That's my co-author. And so she appeared many times in the book throughout, kind of lending her lived experience, expertise to it. And and writing it, we spent a lot of time together and we had to stop the meetings, our writing sessions several times to, work our way through it. And just for those who haven't listened to it or read it yet, I don't think it's over the top at all, the content. Like anybody can listen to it. It's not over the top gruesome. There's certainly some spots where she goes into some detail, but it's not brutal in that way. And the title of the book, Men Fight for Me, you saw in that the trailer that one lady said, I needed someone to fight for me. That's where the title of the book comes from. Her name is Rachel. You can find her bio and everything at fightforme.net, and she's got some amazing things out there that she's doing. And so I don't know if you're going to ask this, but I'll just offer it because it kind of segues into it. So I was at a awareness event on a Saturday in a church in LA, and Rachel there, along with Jessica, who I just mentioned, they were on a panel, and Rachel was sharing what had happened to her and her trafficking experience. And chapter 3 of the book, she goes into detail. If you guys remember it, I know you read it and listened to it. And she came from a great home, went away to college, prom queen, 4.0 GPA. I mean, had everything going for her, and a fraudulent modeling agent approached her. And long story short, she became her trafficker and was trafficked. And so in what she is saying there, she says, I began to believe how worthless and shameful I was. These are in her mind. And I could no longer fight for myself. I needed someone to fight for me. She said that. And I was already in. I was already with Saving Innocence. But when she said that, it was like a lightning bolt. Like she was, those situations where, there's a crowded room. I thought they were speaking right to me. Mm-hmm. Like, I think she said it so I could hear it. And in that moment, this book was born. I didn't know that. That's hindsight. But I'm doing the math here. Wait a minute. Most of the buyers are men. Most of the sellers are men. Men are the problem. And now I have a trafficking survivor on the stage saying, I needed someone to fight for me. It's like, I'm in. All right, here's my lane. There's something here that I can do, and I can speak to men in a way that women can't, because I'm a man. And so then the book was born. I started approaching everybody. Would you guys want to be in it? And here we are. So I'm glad you guys love it.
Yeah, what I love about the book is it's obviously a powerful call to action for men. But not only that, but it's really informative. It really gives you a lot to everything you really need to know. Not everything, but a lot to know about all aspects of trafficking. One of the things that I loved is you talk about how you're a big movie guy, and you talk about Braveheart and The Matrix, and you use an example from Matrix about taking the red pill. Like, once you read this book, you're all in, because you're gonna see it. You can't unsee or unhear this stuff. I'm a movie guy. I work in the film industry, so I work in post-production. So I love movies and films. And the way I was thinking of your book, there's a movie. I don't know if you remember the movie. It was with Matthew McConaughey. And it was called, I wrote it down because I knew that I was going to probably, A Time to Kill. Do you remember that movie? A Time to Kill, with Sandra Bullock, Matthew McConaughey, and Samuel L. Jackson. The gist of the book was it's set in the South back in I think the 70s. So there's a lot of racial tension going on. And Samuel L. Jackson's character's daughter gets raped brutally by these two white men. And then out of justice, he goes and he shoots them because they don't, he doesn't believe that the court system does it right. So Matthew McConaughey is his lawyer, and he gives his closing argument, and he basically goes and he starts telling the story, every little brutal detail of what happened to this poor little girl, to the juror, who is mostly white, by the way. And then he has them close their eyes and tells them the story. And at the very end, he tells them, now imagine she was white. And that was where they all opened their eyes and they were shocked, because it connected them into the issue. And I feel like that's what your book is doing. It's connecting people who are not familiar, maybe heard, but don't really think, like you said, maybe they are, they think it's something that happens in Thailand or in Southeast Asia, or maybe it does happen, but it's not that big of a deal. No, it really shows you that it's happening everywhere.
Yeah. And what was so compelling to me, Alan, about the book title alone is that I thought, look, I'm a man, but you know what? I had a man fight for me, my father. I mean, he was a quiet guy, but he really did direct me. And I remember times where just his presence would keep me in line. He wasn't a brutal man, none of that, but his presence. So your title, and my father recently passed, it was like, oh, I've had men fight for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's been such a gift. So such a great, the book. And then your 4 pillars. Well, first, I'd like to hear the triad of the 3 people, and then I'd like to jump in.
We're jumping all over the place.
Yeah,
I love it.
It's all good.
Yeah. We might have to come back next week and do a part 2. I'll be a recurring character here.
We would love to have you.
Yeah. So the goal was really kind of several goals. We can't be mad at a society, at a person, at a government, at anybody for not fixing the thing they don't know about.
Right.
So part of the goal of this book was to bring some basic education and awareness to all parts of it, all the important parts of the crime. And so that we can have a call to action at the end of the book. Like, how are you going to have a call to action on something we don't even understand or get? So we had to do a basic level of all those things. And so the triad, I don't think I ever used that word, but that's probably right. It's a good word. There's 3 important components to trafficking. There's the buyer. Without any buyer, sex trafficking goes away. And that's why this focus on the male audience, because most of the buyers are men. It's good old fashioned supply and demand. If everybody, for whatever reason, quit buying the Apple phone, they'd quit making the Apple phone. They do something else. And so it's just supply and demand, capitalism.
Yes.
And so there's a chapter on the buyers, and who are the buyers? Who's buying sex from children? What's going on? And so we break that down, and some of these ladies will give some of their perspective and testimony on it. And the short answer is, it's, what does the buyer look like? It looks like everybody. It looks like your neighbor. It looks like the Little League coach and the dentist. It looks like the cop and the pastor. It looks like your friend. And I usually say this, and I kind of get eyebrows raised when I say this, when I usually say, you probably know someone who buys sex.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean? Yeah, we can come and peel that onion if you want a little bit. But the definition of buying sex is larger than just a physical encounter. So I'll leave that teaser there. We can come back to it if you want.
Yeah.
But we break down what the buyers are. It's important. If there's no buyer, there's no crime. Well, there's a victim. What are they buying? They're buying something from a vulnerable a person. Many of them are children. And we go into details like how does a 12-year-old, and that's the average age of entry. Our youngest kiddo at Saving Innocence a few years ago, just 7 years old, kind of coming out of Long Beach, California, not Thailand. Yeah. And so we've had a lot of, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds. How is it that they are available and vulnerable to that level? What's going on? And so we break that down. Most of them, some 80% are already in the foster care system. We know that statistically. In order to get in the foster care system, you have your life already blown up. Your family's already blown up. That particular child has never seen a healthy male treat her appropriately.
Right. She's
been violated by the men close to her, her dad, her uncle, the neighbor, and things have happened. So she doesn't know what a healthy, appropriate male looks like and does. She doesn't know what healthy love looks like. And so she's been violated. She becomes vulnerable. And now the trafficker comes in, and that's the third part. The trafficker comes in, spots the vulnerability, and now starts telling her everything that she's ever wanted to hear, that she's beautiful and loved. And he wants to take care of her. These are all things she's been longing for. Mm-hmm. All of us at any age want someone to notice us, to love us, right. To, all that. This is human stuff. She's never had it, and it's been the other direction. And so she can't tell the difference between a healthy male doing and saying things and an unhealthy male, because she's never seen the healthy version. Right. So she's vulnerable to his predatory behavior. And I think it's important to make sure that we pause on him for a moment. He's a predator. Yeah. It's not just a circumstantial, accidental meeting. A trafficker is a predator. The FBI said a while back that there's at least 900,000 predators online, surfing the internet and social media and games and everything, different picture, different profile. And they're looking for, young girls and boys, mostly girls, that present in a vulnerable way, and they're preying on her. If you think about it, I've done this before when I've spoken at places. If you could Google right now, you could Google, some kind of National Geographic little video on, predators in the jungle, lions, kind of a thing, like the Animal Kingdom.
Yeah.
And they'll come up a video. We've all seen versions of this video in our time. And you got the lion, who's the classic predator, and he's laying down in the tall grass, and he's downwind. There's an instinct and there's a strategy. And then that herd of zebra comes running by, or whatever the animal is, and he's going to sit there. He's watching it. He's looking for one that is easy prey, that's available. And that usually means it's the smaller one that's a little slower, gets separated from the pack. And he jumps on that one and has his lunch right there. He doesn't jump on that first strong, confident, and aware big leader of the pack. He lets that one go by. It's too much trouble. He waits for that weak, vulnerable, unaware, timid one. And it's the same thing is happening, in human trafficking. That predator is laying in wait, and he's waiting to pounce on that young one who has been separated from the pack and doesn't have the guardianship around her that she deserves. And that's the trafficker. And so, well, who's buying and selling? Who's facilitating this? Like, what's going on? I actually sat down, as you remember, in the book. Well, I actually sat down with the trafficker. I didn't get his voice on the audio version, but right. With a former trafficker, and I said, what's going on? Tell me why you did what you did. Right. And he talked about it. It's in the book. He talked about the fact of how he grew up with a single parent. Surprise, surprise, no dad around. Mom was addicted to something, sleeping in a car. They needed money. And the older guys in the neighborhood were running around doing this, and they were making a lot of money. And it was, I'm not giving him an excuse. I'm just painting the picture for how it happens. Right. He has the same upbringing, the same conditions that produce the victim are producing these young traffickers. Right. And so our whole society is upside down that way. We're creating and allowing an environment to happen where vulnerability exists. And
Yes.
some young people go down a certain path, and some don't. But that's what's happening. So we do break down all of those things in the book to give a basic level of understanding, so we can move forward on the content.
Yeah. What stood out to me was first of all, I love how you kind of, and it's hard to do when we were talking about the traffickers and the buyers. Like, you're not like just looking for justice, but you're also looking for rehab, like rehabilitation, right? And one of the things that I noticed, that all three, the buyer, the trafficker, and the survivor, they all, like, the word that came up for all of them was surviving. Like, they were in a context of surviving, like that whatever they grew up in, there was like they came from a place of survival, which, like, Juan and I talk about this a lot, that like survival is comes from like a lack or a perceived lack of resources, right? And that, which then becomes like the scarcity issue, and it's like meaning that if that's what it is, then there's a way to fix this, and that although full justice should be carried out for anybody that does anything like this, but there may be a way to kind of support them and help them go from a place of surviving to like, oh wow, I can change. There's something better than there's other options, right?
Yeah, that word is a powerful word, survival, and we've heard it from our young clients and staff that are slightly older who are survivors, and they talk. I needed to survive. I don't know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow. Like, I have to do what I have to do to still be alive. We use that word. I hope I can survive my history class today. It's going to be a really rough semester. I hope I can survive football practice in the summer. It's going to be hot.
Right.
Okay. No. These people are fighting for their life, making life and death decisions every day. And you think about that. Wow. I mean, here you've seen in the news all these brutal fires that have gone by. Right. There's men and women, firefighters, that are willingly placing themselves in harm's way, life-threatening situations. They've had training. They have equipment. They have a team around them. Yes. They can do it. Law enforcement, same thing. Military, like, they are willingly putting themselves in life and death circumstances, and they've been given all the tools to survive it. Here we have a society that is placing minors, children,
right, in
literal life and death circumstances, yet they don't have the tools to help fight against that.
Yeah, and this is a great place to move into your 4 pillars. Look, I mean, as a dad, I've got a 25-year-old and a 29-year-old. So, and what was so great about your 4 pillars is that these are conversations that I've had with my boys throughout the years, that I've had with my wife, just about what it means. And the word that you're using is to train up people, right? Your first pillar is take responsibility. And I'd like you to talk about that in the context of masculinity, in the context of how do we bring up men? Because to your point, I mean, Brandon was there when he saw it happen. My eyes opened up to what was happening in sex trafficking. It was an accident, kind of, that I was on this trip. Somebody bugged out. They couldn't lead. And they said, well, Juan, would you mind leading this group? And I said, sure. And my eyes opened up to something that I knew it existed. I'm a grown man. I get it. Yes, this is out there. I did not understand really what was happening. So training up the men around us, the young men, one another, holding ourselves accountable. Your first step is take responsibility. Like, how do we take responsibility?
Yeah, and it was important to early on in the book, before we broke down the triad, as you call it, and gave a lot of solutions, is I wanted to come out of the chute there after we heard from Jessica and Rachel tell their personal stories, like, wow, man, what's going on here? And we go right to chapter 4, and it talks about the role of authentic masculinity. That's a tagline in the book.
Love it.
The role of authentic masculinity. What's that got to do with fighting trafficking? Everything. And so the 4 pillars that I break down in that, and I have a couple of movie quotes in there too. You'll be happy to know, Brandon. I know that. Yeah. The 4 pillars is just something that literally I did with my son. He's now 32. And when he was 5, I came across a great book called Raising a Modern Day Knight. It was about a dad teaching, what am I going to do? There's no agreed upon definition of what it means to be a man. Like, what is it? Is it a certain age? Is it you had sex? Is it graduation of something? Like, what is it? Nobody knows. And so that's dangerous, to put someone else on a race and not know where the finish line is, don't know what the target is on anything. You have to give them a target. And so I got together a couple of my buddies. We read that book together. And one of the first things was the author was challenging you to make, what's your definition of a man? Start there. What do you guys? So the three dads got together and we said, okay, well, we have to give our young boys, are 5 years old, and make it complex enough to be important to last a lifetime, but simple enough where they could understand it age appropriately at 5. And then we kept meeting with our boys. And the first one is accepts responsibility. The first pillar of someone practicing authentic masculinity is he accepts responsibility. The responsibilities that we have. How many men do you see abdicating their role as father, as husband? Right. Running away from battles that need to be fought, not necessarily actual battles, but, the kind of battles that are happening around.
Yep.
And we need young men to be brought up. I'm going to accept those responsibilities. I'm not going to run from them. I'm not going to hide from them. I'm going to own them. I'm going to walk with them. And then maybe that generation of young men sees responsibilities out there. Someone needs to do this or that over there. And it's not technically their responsibility, but they're going to step in. I'm going to accept it in my neighborhood, at the school my kids go to, maybe the world. Like maybe there's something that we need to do as men to step forward and accept that responsibility. That's pillar number 1.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, that reminds me of I don't know if you like Joseph Campbell. I know, Juan, you know a lot about Joseph Campbell, and he talks about Alan, have you ever heard of Joseph Campbell?
I have not.
He's basically the guy that wrote the book
on
about mythologies. Yeah, the hero's journey. But he, George Lucas used his platform, or his I would say his outline to make Star Wars. But the one thing is, there's always a call to action. Right, the hero's journey, there's a call to action, and it sounds like taking responsibility is the call to action, because it's anytime you try to take responsibility for anything, it's gonna be opposition, and so it's like, okay, this is my call to action. This is my beginning of my hero's journey, and that's good.
Yeah, and that's where the second pillar. Were you going to bring that up, Juan?
Well, I was going to say too that I've raised two boys now, young men, and that to accept responsibility, powerful move, but then to also recognize that we are likely responsible for it all. It's all the downstream things. It's like the things we choose not to see, and that we're responsible for it all as men. And I because we have the great gift of being able to see, because we've been blessed with vision, to be able to see downstream consequences from every action, right? If we just are courageous enough, and I want to lead you into this, just courageous enough to move in that way. So I want to take you to your next pillar.
Yeah. Pillar number 2 is the authentic male, authentic masculinity. The definition of a man is someone who leads courageously.
Yeah.
So there's accepting responsibility. I'm going to do what I need to do, what I'm supposed to do. I'm not going to run from it. And now in the middle of that, I'm going to be a courageous leader. Every day when I dropped my son off at school, when he was, 7, 8, 9, 10, I mean, just as long as we're driving to school, I'd say a number of things. And I'd always say, be a leader today, not a mindless follower. And and drumming it into his head, be a leader on the playground with your friends at lunchtime, and then just apply that to whatever age you are. And if we're going to get after important things in this world, like trafficking, let's just say we're going to try to put an end to human trafficking. Great. Well, we're going to need a lot of courageous leadership. We're going to need a bunch of guys to step in the way of the other guys. Hey, guess what? We're not going to that strip club we were talking about. Well, why not? Because I'm not going to let you. Because most of those girls in that strip club don't want to be there. That's right. We're not going to go monetize their abuse. We're not doing it.
That's good.
And that's going to take some courageous leadership. It's going to take courageous leadership on, people that are active in social media and say things and take a stand for certain things. That's going to take courageous leadership amongst your network. We need courage. And as I quote in the book, A.M. Gray from the book War Fighting, which is the former commandant of the Marine Corps, he wrote a little short book on here's what the Marines are going to be about. He says, courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward regardless of it, And so Doesn't mean we don't have to be tough guys that don't have any emotions. Guys, you can be afraid of something. You could be a little nervous about something. That's fine. Good. You should be. You should be doing something. You should be trying to do something that's bigger than you. And you might fail. That's where it's going to take courageous leadership. And that's pillar number 2.
Well, and Alan, what I appreciated in your book so much is that when you heard the call, men fight for me.
Yeah.
I just felt the depth of emotion that was for you, and how daunting maybe the task before you was going to be, but you move anyway, right? Like, look, we're all part of this work, and there's days where like I'm just not, I'm not equipped. I don't have the talent. I don't know what I'm doing, all of the things, but we regroup, we have each other, and we take the next courageous step that's possible. So good, Alan. Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, I what I love about that, when I was thinking in your book, you towards the end, you have a bunch of other men on there, kind of defining their definition of what authentic masculinity is. And so I was thinking about that for myself, and it's funny because what came up for me was courageous masculinity. C.S. Lewis, in his book Screwtape Letters, he talks about courage being the most important virtue, because it's the one virtue you need to do all the other virtues. You need to have courage to go forward. You need to have courage to take responsibility. You need to have courage to do all the other thing. Is like the foundation of it is courage. And so I love that that's like your second pillar. That's like you start, the first thing you're going to need when you start is courage.
Right.
And what I like, it's the context amongst other men, right? So it's very difficult for me personally to be courageous alone. But when I have people like you out in the world, it's just, I'm willing to take the step.
Yeah.
So pillar 3.
Pillar 3 is he lives a life of service. And I love one of the guys, you mentioned the chapter of the guys sharing their picture of masculinity, and the one guy who actually is out probably right now running covert missions, rescuing kids from the deepest, darkest recesses here. He's an absolute stallion. And he said, when a man takes, he loses all credibility. And the idea is we're here to give, not take.
Yes.
So marry that with living a life of service. And we get to that in the book too. It all starts at home. It starts with us guys looking in the mirror and live a life of service. So where, how, what do I do? Well, start with your wife if you're married.
Yeah.
Start with your children. Serve your family. We're called to give our life up, right?
Yeah.
And then branch out with your neighborhood. What does it mean to serve your neighbor? Maybe an elderly neighbor needs some help taking the garbage cans out on garbage night. I mean, look for little ways to live a life of service and let your kids see it, particularly your young boys. Here's what it looks like. Hey, son, come on. We're going to go out and mow the lawn of that because somebody broke their leg or something. Do little things like that. It's not life world changing necessarily, but we're drumming in the idea we're going to live a life of service, and the idea that our life is meant to do so much more. Our life can't be simply to satisfy our own desires and needs and cravings. Like, that's part of it. We're going to live our life and, go take a vacation once in a while, have some fun. That's fine. But the bulk of your life has to be, according to this definition, you have to have a thread that you're going to serve your fellow human around. And maybe it's in your neighborhood. Maybe it's a bigger platform than that. Maybe we're going to serve the world. Maybe we're going to serve a whole population of vulnerable children.
Yep. And I'll say, Alan, that I do believe that even serving in the little things is momentous and life-changing. I had an experience here recently with a 25-year-old, and he said I could share it. So, where he actually thanked me for being able to lead courageously, because, and it only took 25 years.
Right. That's pretty fast. Good for you.
I was surprised. I called my wife. I was like, I can't believe what just happened. And,
right.
But when you're taking the little steps, like when you're helping the neighbor stack nursery stones, we don't really know long-term what serving others is, how it's impacting our families or our friends, right? Yeah. So, it's so good.
Absolutely.
Pillar 4.
Pillar 4, he understands that who he is more important than what he does. So much of this world, we get rewarded and applauded for the outward things that we do. Whether you're a great musician or a great athlete, you caught a touchdown, you got an A on the test, you're smart, whatever. All of that is graded in the public eye, and we get rewarded for it financially and otherwise. And so I'm saying, and we're saying to our boys, phenomenal. Choose whatever you want to do. And if you're good at something, go for it and be great at it. That's awesome. That's good. But let's make sure we keep it in the right order of importance. There's that external, outward, your profession, your skill, your life that you're living. That's good. But what's a little more important than that is the internal. It's who you are on the inside. Who you are is more important than what you do. Yeah. It's like, we don't care if you're going to go be a CEO or run a business or, what. That's fine. We're going to help you do what you need to do. We're going to be excited about it. We're going to be in the stands cheering you on. But let's never forget that who you are when no one's looking, who you are when the shadows are around, who you are at night and dark, who you are in front of your computer after hours. Like, who you are is more important than what you do. And that was something we want to drum into our little boys too, that they could focus on the internal rather than the external in their life.
Yeah, and that's so good, because I have kids too, but mine are 9, 7, and 5 right now, and so they're at the young age right now. Mm-hmm. But my wife and I are really intentional on how we, like when we celebrate their wins, that we're not celebrating so much what they did, but how they acted in that moment.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
and that was a big thing for us. We heard that as well. Like, we didn't just like make that up ourselves, but we could see the difference, right? We can like within a couple months, you can see the difference within our children, and like it, making sure that they know that it's not about the accomplishment, it's about the character, right? And that's been such a powerful tool for us, and I love that, because I think that's the world wants what you do. I think, and the way it kind of it shows itself. It's like, give me all that you can do. When all, in honesty, what we really want is who you are.
All that stuff fades away. Pretty soon you can't hit the home run anymore. Pretty soon you don't look good. Pretty soon you can't sing anymore. Pretty soon someone else.
Hair.
There you go. And so like a practical application, for your dads out there of young kiddos. I don't know if your kids play sports, Brandon, but let's say your 10-year-old hits a home run in Little League baseball. Right. As a dad, we're cheering for that. That's great. Yes. We're so good. Exactly. We're going to celebrate. Yep. We're high-fiving. It's not a bad thing. It's a great thing. But then maybe in that conversation on the way home, you relive that home run. You say, but you know what I really loved? I noticed that when your friend struck out, you went over and you gave him a high five, and you encouraged him. And I want to say that was awesome. Maybe even better than the home run. You encouraged 100%. Your friend, because that revealed who you are, not just what you do. So some little things like that along the way can train our young boys to get out in that world.
I love it.
And when we're living this kind of way, Alan, from your perspective, how does this choke the supply and the demand?
Well, a young man who's growing up, living out these pillars, these patterns in his life, and now gets a little bit older, there's no room for someone who's accepting responsibility, who's living courageously, who's living a life of service and focusing on the inward. There's no room for himself to go down a path of buying sex from any one age. That doesn't fit. That calculus doesn't fit.
Right.
And then there's no room for the people around him to be living that kind of a life, because he's going to accept the responsibility. He's going to lead courageously. He's going to serve them, and he's not going to let the people in his orbit go down that destructive path. And we get enough men, young boys, teenagers, 20-something, 30-somethings. We get enough of these men living that way, living out these pillars. And if you're listening to this, you can add one. There's nothing magical. These are me and my 2 buddies came up with. And if you want to add something else, that's great. The important thing is to give a target for our young boys to aspire to, and answer that question. Define the reality. Here's what we're shooting for, guys. And we're going to celebrate it when we see it. And we're going to correct when we don't see it. And if we get enough men living out these 4 pillars, I'm pretty passionate about these 4. Again, you could add one if you want, but we want to keep it simple. We don't want 10 things.
Right.
Here's 4. And then, we would meet once a quarter as the dads with the boys, and we'd always, do something fun. We'd always miniature golf or whatever we want to do. We'd get some food. You got to feed the young boys.
That's right.
And then we'd have a little content. We'd have a little study. They all had a binder. Hey, today we're going to talk about leading courageously. And we'd have a little quote from something and age appropriate, maybe a movie quote, maybe a Bible verse, whatever. And we talk about courageous leadership, maybe watch a movie that had something to do with it. And you just keep doing those things, say it differently throughout the years. And if we get a bunch of boys living that way, there's no room for trafficking. There's no room for buyers and traffickers. And then I saw this somewhere. I don't know. I don't remember if it was like a joke but some little meme, something on social media, and it said 80% of all problems are caused by men. That's what it said. Yeah. And I sort of laughed, and I thought, I said, oh, I don't know if that was some kind of a study or just some kind of a joke, but it's probably not far off.
Right.
In fact, the number might be too small.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
So there's human trafficking, and then there's fatherlessness, and there's violence, and there's shooters, and there's wars, and there's corporate takeovers, and there's all these things that cause our world to be less than it should be. Yep. And I bet most of those things, 80%, according to the meme on social media, there's a bunch of idiot men behind it, absorbed in themselves and their addictions and their greed and their narcissism and their power and all that stuff. So if we get enough men living out these 4 pillars, a lot of the world's problems are going to go away.
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, what's amazing is that like Brandon and I work with young men and with youth. Brandon works with a lot of teenage, high school guys, and just the impact that him just being in a conversation with them, and in some cases hard conversations, you can see the shift because the young man is craving greatness. He's craving a path to be courageous. He's craving a path where he can distinguish himself. And if we encourage, like your book encourages men, it's not that you choke out sex trafficking. It's that you now live in a realm where that's not even possible.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that was so captivating to me about your book, because I went through it a few times. Because first I love the production value,
right? And
then it seemed like, oh, these 4 pillars, they're great. But the more I kind of thought about it, and I'm bouncing it off of Brandon and other people, I go, man, this is a lifetime of conversations.
Yeah,
yeah,
so good.
Yeah, it reminds me. Again, I'm going to go back. I love stories. I love movies. The whole Joseph Campbell, this hero's journey, part of the hero's journey is there needs to be a mentor that takes you on the journey.
Yep.
Even if you read like Dante, Dante had Virgil, on his journey to the heavenly realm. So like, and a lot of times, like what you were saying, Alan, is that a lot of these men, whether they're buyers or traffickers or whatever, they didn't have that mentor in their life, like a male figure mentor. And so I think it's if men stood up, like stood up, and even men that, like, let's say, like for me, I was blessed to have a father, and he wasn't perfect, but he was in my life, and he's done so much for me. But if for someone like me, I am blessed, but now I can also take that on and then pour that into to young men that haven't had that, don't have that
that figure in their life.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
If we want to solve the world's problems, it's not hyperbole, I don't believe. If we want to solve the world's problems, we got to create fathers and father figures around our young boys growing up. And there's plenty of fatherlessness. There's plenty of boys running around in orphanages and group homes and juvenile halls that have never known a healthy father in their life. And one of the things that, in that one chapter where I have all conclusions and solutions, it's a heavy lift. I get it. Almost no one's going to do it, but there might be somebody, and then they read it, and I talk about, why don't you go find a young boy in a vulnerable situation that doesn't have a father and enter his life and be a mentor to him. That's a big deal. But there are mechanisms, boys and girls clubs and all those kinds of things. There's mechanisms where you can show up, even if you did nothing more than just show up maybe you want to go be a leader in your church's youth group or something like that, or just some place where there's a bunch of kids. You don't even have to say anything at first.
Right.
Just show up.
Yeah.
Be there. Be a guy who's
Be
not
present,
trying to harm anybody.
Yeah.
And you're going to literally change lives.
You are.
Just by showing up.
Yep.
So good.
I've seen it over and over.
Yeah, and so I want to. We're getting close to the end of this, but we might run over a little bit. But I'm okay with that. This conversation's so good. I think it's so important because we talk about authentic masculinity, and in our culture right now, obviously that word, depending on where you're at, and I don't want to get political or anything, but just that's a huge conversation around that word, what authentic masculinity is. And what I loved is that you had. Like we talked a little bit about, you had, I don't know how many men, like different men give their definition of what they thought authentic masculinity was. Almost like they kind of creating their own little list, kind of like you did for your child, for themselves.
Yeah.
And what I loved about that is everyone was unique.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember there was one where one guy was talking about love. And then there was one guy that really stood out to me, which I think is an aspect of masculinity. He was so transparent and just so vulnerable because he was talking about how much pain he was in and how he's struggling so much. In his letter, he's saying this in your book, right?
Yeah.
And I don't even remember exactly what his definition was, but he was doing it right there, being an authentic man, right? Because he knows it's going to go out to the world, which I think is beautiful. I think transparency and authenticity is a powerful thing. So talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
That friend, the one you're talking about, is a close friend of mine, and his daughter had been going through a real difficult time and a lot of struggles, and he writes, I don't even know, I don't have any air in my lungs right now, and I'm shedding tears, and the conclusion is maybe that's what an authentic man does. He doesn't hide it and push it and try to be tough. Right. He actually shows up present in the world for such as I am. Here I am, and it might not always be pretty. And that was an important thing. I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah, that was really powerful for me because one of my character flaws is that I tend to hide. I just don't want people to know. And my friends around know because all of a sudden I'm not talking much and I go underground and they love me enough to say, "Hey bro, where you been?" Yeah. Right. And that letter was, for me, I just so related it. I understand the hiding. And what's so great again about your book and about these pillars is that you're encouraging us to do this in a communal setting with a group of men so that we can actually share, life is not working out now. I need help, even if it's just to hear me out.
Yeah.
Again, so good.
Well, what I would recommend to your listeners, and you guys can be the test case here, is that I've been saying this, is that grab a handful of books, rightforme.net, and get your guys and have a little book club and meet once a week early in the morning for coffee or breakfast or something. And today we're talking about this chapter. Mm-hmm. And in my head, I'm working on a little discussion guide. I haven't put it on paper yet, but maybe I'll do that. But I think there's great power in that, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys reading the book at the same time, coming together and talking and having this conversation for over the course of an 8-week time period. I think it'd be golden.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep. Cool.
So let's really quick before we're going to land a plane here really soon, but I think what I wanted to just really quick talk. If you hear you had a plan on how we can, some of the things you had, like a micro plan and a macro plan,
right? And
some ideas that you had. I feel like the micro plan is awesome, and we could talk a little bit about that. But I like the macro plan because it's more like societal, like as far as if somebody just got done listening to the book or they're listening to this podcast and they're like, wow, I'm going to listen to your book and I want to get involved. So what can I do? Can you share some of those plans, or which ones you think are most effective, or ones that maybe you've tried or are working, some that maybe they're not working?
And in the printed book, there is a pretty big what's the word? Well, there's resources in the back. There's a word. I'm drawing a blank. Appendices. There's a bunch of different resources in there. Like, here's 10 things you could do today. And, there's a lot of that going on. There's a note to the church and talks about, the people that belong to churches, all those kinds of things. But that chapter you're talking about, we talk the macro, the micro, and then the ultimate solution. If I could be so bold to say that. And so, the macro is, okay, here's some things, here's some big picture things that, and I call them on purpose conversation starters, like a paragraph on each thing. I'm not trying to have an exhaustive battle plan for each one of these things. That'll be, have to come up with, what state you live in, what county you live in, all those kinds of things. But, things like we need, as a society, need to prioritize more funding in order to fight human trafficking. Yes. Whether that's more law enforcement officers focused on it, whether it's more money devoted to tech. There's a lot of amazing technology things that are happening right now being worked on to help fight it. So that those kinds of things, it's, urging people to vote for people at all the different levels who have included in their platform and their debates and the things they say that they're going to be focused on anti-trafficking work. Some say it and talk about it, some don't. Right. Only it's a litmus test for, you don't get my vote unless you're trying to end this thing. We need you to do that. So there's a good dozen of those kinds of things that, pick one, if you're reading this, to kind of give some effort to it and some more thought to it. And then the kind of the micro is kind of really a lot of the stuff we've been talking about right now.
Exactly.
It's inside your house. It's looking in the mirror.
Yes.
Make sure your life is in sync with a non-exploitive culture that you want your daughter to grow up in. Make sure you're living that way. So you got to ask the question: what music are you listening to on your iPod stuff? Are you monetizing people that in their lyrics, maybe not every song, but in their lyrics is exploitive, harmful language? There's plenty of them that have that. Are we playing that music in the house? What about the TV shows and the movies that we're watching? And especially if the 8 to 9, 10, 12-year-old kids, what are they seeing on the TV? Make sure inside the micro version, we're going to do everything we can to create a non-exploitive culture in the places within our reach. And it starts at home. And so that's kind of the micro purpose. And then that ultimate solution is similar to that. It's okay, raise your sons to be the right kind of man, raise your daughters to be able to tell the difference, and live that way and live it out loud, and make sure your life is synced up with all that. So that's a very short version, but there's a lot more information in the book.
Yeah. Go check out the book.
As you were speaking, real quick, Brenda, as you were speaking, so my sons were younger, right? They were 13, 14, whatever, but they were listening to some music which was so misogynistic, terrible stuff. And my wife just started singing the lyrics as loud as she could. And my boy said, we get it. Stop. We're going to turn it off. We get it. Stop. Please stop. Please stop.
That's so good.
I
can see Leslie doing that, but I know his wife.
Oh, man.
She's part of the our organization. I love that macro. Actually, I was like, wow, this is a great, because for our organization, we want to be strategic on who we support. I mean, we want to try to support as many people that are willing to go out there. We want to support them, but we also want to be strategic. And I feel like there's like when you talked about like the political side of it, right? Where people like, let's vote for politicians that are really fighting for this. It's like, whoa, what if we can find an organization that's doing that? That's like sending out mailers saying, these are the people that if you are passionate about anti-human trafficking, here are the people that you can vote for, because these are the people, because they vetted them and stuff. The tech part of it, all that stuff, I think I love it, because I think I'm going to talk to our team and use it as kind of like a map for like who we want to go after when we're looking for organizations that we want to support. So I appreciate it so much.
And then Alan, how do people get in touch with you? How do they follow you? How do they give to your organization? All that good stuff.
Yeah, perfect. Savinginnocence.org is the website of the organization that I lead. And if someone feels so moved to support us financially, there's a button there to do that. We even take cryptocurrency. How about that?
Nice.
Awesome.
Stock transfers and, credit cards and all that kind of stuff. Would love for your support. That's one great way to support Saving Innocence for sure. If you're local and you live in Southern California and LA, there are volunteer opportunities, and so I could talk to you about that.
Perfect.
Okay.
And the other website around the book is fightforme.net. You can email me off that website. There's a place contact. You can send me an email. We can have more conversation. I have a guy in Florida right now that read the book. He was looking for something, his next book to read that had to do with men stuff. And we purposely put the word men in the title. Nice. Rachel didn't say I need men to fight for me. She says I need someone to fight for me. And we added the word men because we wanted that to show up in searches for men's things. And it actually worked. There's a guy in Florida that I've been emailing and talking on the phone with for about 1.5 years now. He was so taken with the book. He's like, you guys all loving it. And so now, so I'm happy to interact with anyone who would like to email me and just chop this up a little bit, get the book, pass the book around. And then on social media, there's a Fight For Me book on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. It's a different, not Twitter, X. So we post book stuff there. We'll post this thing on those pages and let people see it. And then I have personal social media too, but that's all the ways to get a hold of us and get a hold of me and join the fight.
Awesome. So Alan, I thank you. The production of the audio was great. The resources in the printed version were great. I say get both.
Yeah.
So
buy a bunch of books and give them to your friends.
Right. We're going to do that.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I think I'm sorry, real quick. I think I said this, but just let's finish. We're finishing up. The proceeds are benefiting survivors of trafficking, and specifically those survivors that are in the book.
Perfect.
Awesome.
And so we keep a little money out to pay for the website and that kind of stuff. But so you can feel great about buying as many as you can and pass them out, and whatever few bucks are made off it is going to benefit the population that we're talking about.
Perfect.
I love it. Well, Alan, thank you so much. This has been such an awesome conversation.
This is how I like to spend my Friday nights, by the way.
Exactly. Me too. I would love to do this again. Maybe I don't know. Is this the only book you've authored, or is this have you? Well,
as a matter of fact, on the fightforme.net resources page, there's another book that I wrote for dads who have daughters called Prized Possession.
Great.
Okay.
And that's available as well. And so in a similar format, I asked a bunch of dads who had daughters to talk about their experiences, kind of like the Fight For Me, and there's a lot of good stuff in there too. So
great,
awesome. Well, we would love to have you back on next time you write your next
book,
or maybe do a documentary. You're a movie guy, right?
Absolutely, yeah.